Honestly, when it comes to my opinion towards Isekai, I have mixed opinions. When it comes to it, I absolutely adore the concept, like very much. I love everything about it. Like there's a lot of aspects to it that tells some pretty interesting, fun narratives that is to explore. Majority of people who usually do stuff like this is morely people who are people in fan bases and communities. But I always love that shit. It's interesting, fun, and it's always fun to show what would happen if a person gets into this type of situation when they're taken out of their own narrative and just put in a situation that is new, a world that is very much has its own rules, laws, and all this type of stuff. And seeing how that person behaves in that is fascinating. It's a very, very fascinating thing to since people are unpredictable. Everyone has unique moralities and perspectives, and it's always interesting to see what type of road they become. Majority anime I always seen with Isekai was really good. Like Overlord was probably my favorite because it took the concepts, a lot of it, and did something unique and interesting. I liked how it in many ways influenced the MMO world and mixing it and merging it with whole this new fantasy world, where everything he knows is kind of different in a matter that it's kind of like it's hard to really explain, but all that matters is the world blends with it, and it actually works perfectly. And it even goes in detail and explains how each magic originally was used, and we see the complete contrast of that in the world. And I love stuff like this. Hell, we even see him become less of him being a fucking sweaty gamer and becoming more of a bloodthirsty overlord, which is honestly a light, where we see him being more willing to kill and never think twice about stuff like that. It just happens, and it's interesting. But in newer isekais, we never really get stuff like that. The protagonists are always more generic, bland, tasteless, predictable, not really and most of all, forgettable. Like it's just unoriginal crap. If you're gonna in many ways make a protagonist, you have to make a protagonist that's generally interesting and stands out. Like make them an asshole, make them a bully, or make them like some farmer, or anything that's generally interesting with mixed with that personality, what they're about. Farmers are more laid back, not really this type of person that would go all out or eventually all that crap. They're more really a fulfilled, honest individual who's hardworking. But them in unique situations is always very interesting. Hell, I'll show you example. Like, take Spider-Man. Everybody loves Spider-Man. Like, the guy shoots web out his ass. Everyone loves him. But when you take him out of Marvel and put him in the worst world imaginable, the question is, would Peter Parker still be Peter Parker? Like, what would he do? Like, what exactly would he do in situations like this? That he is the last person in this crappy world that actually is meaningful, that could actually make change in this world. Like, if this was a zombie apocalypse, like for that example, where there's no people with powers, just Spider-Man, the question you always have to ask is, what would Peter do? What exactly would he become? Since we know how he behaves, his personality, but in a situation like this, would he throw that away? It's something I genuinely like. That's an interesting concept of an isekai. Taking that person who's in many ways well prominent and put them in a situation that's pretty crappy and see what happens. Would they still be the same? And what happens if they in many ways were brought back? And how would they act? Like Peter Parker, like possibly kill people. He did some pretty fucked up decisions, or maybe he's still the same. It's interesting to think about what a person do once they are in this world and how they would act once they're brought back. Like, there's a lot of interesting concepts isekais, and I feel like they don't get creative or interesting. Like, there's a lot of fun concepts you can play. Like, say, Goblin Slayer, for example. Like, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with that. Like, say, make an isekai series that focuses more on a goblin, a person who reincarnates as a goblin, and in many ways trying to show and at the same time prove that goblins aren't entirely evil assholes that likes to impregnate women with their god awful children. That looks very disgusting. Kinda. Like, not really. Like, the babies actually look adorable, but the adults, that's only something their father would love. Their mother would actually kill them immediately. Like, let's be honest. Like, like they would immediately do that. Like, have you seen what they do to women? It's horrible. They would bash them with a rock. Why wouldn't they? But the point in many ways is that's an interesting concept. Goblin Slayer's always been in the mindset that all goblins are evil, they need to die. He's never really experienced one goblin that's actually pretty okay and isn't evil or isn't, batshit bloodthirsty. It's interesting to see him in a position where he's willing to let one goblin live, but anytime he fucks up just once, he's dead. Or anything. Like, I like that. Like, there's a cool scene you could have that because him making one little mistake, loses an eye. And that's a very terrifying and brutal thing that comes out of nowhere because to this little slayer, he thinks that because what he did could mean he's possibly faking to survive. Stuff like that is generally interesting. Like, that's a very like thriller-ish, where the main protagonist has to prove that he's not like other goblins. And we would see, this goblin slayer change his opinion, his perspective. Seeing a person that's all about, ripping and tearing, and seeing them generally change and switch their perspective is honestly a very cool concept. Like, it doesn't, they can do that or not. It's, like, stuff like that is genuinely interesting. Like, they could make more stuff like that. Like, there's other concepts when it comes to isekais. Like, say, for example, if a person was born in, say, a royal family. People in royal families generally have the shittiest life. Like, it's amazing, spectacular. Like, you are better people, you're good looking, and everyone wants to fuck you, but you also forget that in those times, royalty sucked dick. Like, everything you do has to be you have to always impress people. You have to you look good. You have to be the best. Everyone keeps an eye on you. You're very restricted. You're not allowed to express yourself. Stuff like that is a cool thing to have in isekai anime. Because you can tell a very thrilling and interesting story, explaining more about this world, this country, its politics, and do some pretty interesting thing. Because the one thing you can make sure the protagonist would fear is being disowned, because if he's disowned, he has to survive on his own. He doesn't get any resources or anything. He has to figure things out on his own if he, in many ways, gets disowned. Because that's something that's an interesting concept, that you have to constantly be what they expect you to be, and you have to survive in this ruthless world, because it's not like like people down under, like people on the bottom don't really go through these types of issues, but people on top are always watched, always kept an eye on, and they always have to be very careful in what they do. Since after all, it just takes one little thing to ruin your entire career, your reputation, and so on. Stuff like that is a very interesting thing to explore more in fantasy worlds. When it isn't magic, it isn't this whole powerful bullshit, but it's the honest, fun thing to explore one thing to explore the situation a person is put through and how they survive and how they use the system towards their own benefit. I like the fact that it could be a protagonist that isn't bright, a person that is always looked down on due to them not, thinking or in many ways have their education high. Stuff like that can be very relatable to many people in Japan, since not every person is this bright individual. Like, some people are not all stupid smart, or they can't properly pay attention to stuff like that. They actually would be very interesting. Like, a majority of anime doesn't do stuff like that, and some of them are fucking ridiculous. Like, you have a protagonist who has a fucking smartphone. Like, what? Like, what the fuck is he gonna do with a smartphone? And don't give me the guy basically adds some pretty kick-ass apps and so he can do some bullshit. Fuck that. That makes no sense. Like, how does that work? Like, how? Like, there is a lot of interesting things, but that is fucking stupid. Like, that draws the line. Like, that really does. And I feel like, what is there to be said about that? Like, a lot of isekai anime copies of that concept. They don't put a lot of love and, like, integrity in this type of stuff. Like, there's only one isekai anime that was pretty good, and that was the whole degenerate being being reincarnated in his fantasy world as a young child. And it's actually pretty interesting, and seeing how he progressed, and seeing how his own issues are affecting his new life. And I really like that. And it makes a lot of his overpowered moments very amazing, since it's generally earned. He works for this. He actually, deserves these moments because he genuinely works for it and nearly, nearly dies each time trying to learn how to properly harness these types of stuff. And it's amazing to see him actually, show his capabilities. And it's always nice, the show always reminds you that he's still a kid. He can screw up, he can mess up, like, he's human. No one's perfect, and stuff like that makes it endearing. It's just not a lot of shows actually take concepts like that, and it honestly bothers me. And then we get to the other part, the bitches. That is the biggest problem I have with it. Like, every isekai always does this because, yeah, I don't know why. They just do it because why not? Fan service does have a lot of profits and all this. And I have problems with it because the women don't have good reasons to like the protagonist or fall for them. It's never earned. It's never really something that is justified. It's ever justified. The best example is Golden Boy. Golden Boy, in many ways, has a lot of good episodes where it justifies why these people want to get on his, his little rooster, since they generally show deep hatred towards him at the start, but they change their opinion and tone where they see him actually, learning, actually caring and being passionate about what they're doing. Most people generally throw that stuff aside, never really caring about what a person's interested in, but showing that he goes out his way to actually learn, be interested, and even being selfless is something I generally like about him. Hell, the one best thing I like about him is that he had a personality. He felt relatable. Like, I very much related towards him since he generally felt like me, like a complete fucking weirdo that is born in Japan. Like, I love that. It makes what he does enduring, and it makes it justify why these women have feelings and affection for him. But in many isekais, it's never justified to me. It's never earned. Like whatever that beautiful succubus name is in Overlord is somewhat to me justified in why she feels this way. It's understandable, but at the same time, it kind of leads aspects where you do question it, and I like that. And even Ain's question it, and that's actually something I like and enjoy. And it's something I feel like is a problem with many newer ones. I mean, newer anime is they don't do that. Hell, the other one I just mentioned with the whole chunky dude being the young kid's body with magic and shit. It actually has a lot of good moments for the people who it does have feelings towards them. It actually has justifiable reasons to like and or fall from. Like, it's really good, and stuff should learn from that. All I can say is people who are in the whole manga and anime industry should anyways just learn from stuff like this and learn from from their mistakes and make something interesting and new, because there are various isekai manga I read that's pretty promising and interesting, and I honestly do hope they take this stuff to lessons so they can improve their works, because I know deeply that if you make a good story that's interesting, that has struggles and all this, you can make a promising series. Sword Art Online was good at the start in season 1, but dips immediately in season 2 since it lacks very interesting subjects, struggles, and all this. Because after all, the only thing that I thought was pretty interesting was the fact that the Shield Hero was accused for rape. Stuff like that fucks with a person, and that changes you. You can't trust people, and that takes time to heal and stuff like that. People should always learn from these type of stuff because conflict, issues, and various others does help people be interesting. And I honestly hope deeply that a lot of young writers do learn from the mistakes of other people who write in isekais, and also read and watch other isekais that does well. Because I really do hope they do this, because I don't want to see a concept like this be saturated or die. It's a very interesting concept. I love it. Like, it's a really fun thing, fun like idea and storytelling. And I really don't want to die. I want it to die. Though that's just my opinion. One I want to spit out.